this might be my shortest review yet because I don't have a lot good to say about this movie. So The Outwaters is a brand new indie horror film that kind of came out of nowhere. The movie is heavily inspired by the Blair Witch Project. Listen, if you've seen the Blair Witch Project, you kind of know the type of movie that you're going to get. It's one of those found footage type films, and the footage was retrieved many years later, and now that footage has just been turned into a movie. So that's what The Outwaters is. Basically a copy of the Blair Witch Project. Only difference is it's just not as clever, not as unique, and just not as good. Now, this movie has two moments that I actually really enjoyed. The first one was the first 2 minutes of this movie. I can't lie, the first 2 minutes of this film was probably the best part of the entire movie. It really set the tone for what this film was going to be, or at least what they tried to be. It was eerie, it was disturbing, it really made you go, ooh, that was mortifying to hear. And my second favorite part was the ending, because I could not wait for this film to be over. Like, holy crap, dude. That's all I got for the pros. Let's get into the cons. First things first, this movie took way too long to get to the point. The pacing in this movie is absolutely atrocious. Literally, after the opening 2-minute segment, 35 minutes later, we're spent trying to care about these characters that you literally couldn't care about. Now listen, I understand that you want to build up characters and make them likable enough to the point in which you give somewhat of a care about them, but I didn't. In fact, I found these characters to be rather bland. None of them really had anything special. None of them were really detailed or layered. You ain't gotta have no three-dimensional character in a horror film. I just didn't care about the characters. I just literally didn't. Listen, any horror film that takes almost an hour just to get to the point, we're off to a horrible, horrible start. The whole first half was just boring. Nothing, dude, I kid you not, literally nothing happened. And by the second act, when something looks like it's about to happen, it just cuts away and goes back to, like, you know, the friends hanging around. It's like, what happened? And while that could have worked, after that little suspicious segment, we go back to, like, you know, the friends hanging out and all that stuff. That new segment went on for 10 minutes, right? And then by the third act, finally something happens. And when it's all going down on screen, you couldn't even see what was going on. Look, I understand that they are in the desert. However, if I can't even tell what is going on, we have a problem. This movie was way too dark. At least in the Blair Witch Project, for all the scenes that were filmed in the dark, at least you could tell what was going on. In here, you literally could not figure out what was going on. And to make matters worse, they used shaky cam. And you guys already know how I feel about shaky cam. Shaky cam is one of the worst things that anyone can implement into their action flicks. Absolutely disgusting. I hate it. I hate it with a burning passion. So when that happened on screen, I just sat there with my jaw dropped. And then I started laughing because I could not believe this was real. I was like, what are we watching? Because this is not a horror movie. This is a comedy. And while the dialogue is not terrible all the time, there is a moment in which the characters are scared, and I kid you not, one of the characters yells, "I want my mommy." What are you, 12? Overall, this movie had no payoff. By the very end, yes, you know what happens, but everything leading up to that moment was not worth it. It just wasn't worth it. I get what the director tried to do. I see the vision. You just didn't hit the nail on it, you know, and I, for one, just was not a fan of how this was executed. Listen, anything can look good on paper, but it's all about the execution. I could keep talking about how awful this movie is, but at this point, I think you all understand where my head is with this. Guys, in the end, The Outwaters is not a good movie. You're probably not going to watch it. Matter of fact, let's just get this out the way. Plugging The Outwaters into the rank system, this movie is without a doubt going into the negative zone. What's your favorite awful horror film? Or have you seen the new Dungeons & Dragons movie? Are you looking forward to my review of the new Dungeons & Dragons movie? Let me know down in the comment section below, and I will see you all in the next one.
After working up the nerve, almost equal in size, I walked around with the iron for any wrinkle in time. I paid a piece of my mind for every nickel and dime, but never less than a 5 and never slept on a job. A killer crept on your squad, yet never left the garage. When your God was close enough to see the flesh of his eyes. Get to the button and press is what the message advised. What's a threat behind the message where the testament lies?